Who's the best dog trainer? You ask any person and they're going to give you 20 billion different answers. And frankly, this video isn't going to give you that answer either. But this video, I'm going to talk about all the different dog trainers that I've came in contact with over the years. Not like physically contacting, but just the amygdalation of every little concept I've learned, I guess I'm going to talk about here. When you first get into dog training, you're probably going to be overwhelmed. There's so many different people you can listen to. There's so many different topics. Are you going to do retrieving with a retriever, like a lab? Or are you going to do IGP or KNPV with a Malinois, Dutch Shepherd, German Shepherd? Or do you just want a little couch potato like pug? Well, there's different trainers for all of that. And frankly, I feel like most of them, it's the same core concepts. And sometimes you'll get outside of that box, like, say, for example, compare NIPOPO versus STS-Canine. For those who are unfamiliar with NIPOPO, NIPOPO stands for negative, positive, positive. So, for example, the negative would be leash pressure, the positive is the releasal of leash pressure, and then food is the second positive, so NIPOPO. And then STS-Canine stands for Specialized Training System. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Nino, he is a very smart man who, came up with this concept without caring about quadrants. Now, this video isn't about just these two things as a whole. It's just how widely applicable dog training is. So, for example, some of my favorite dog trainers in the research I've done are people who aren't dog trainers. I'm sure many of you haven't even heard of this guy named Mark Dubose. I'm sure you've never heard of Robert Hynes. I'm sure you have heard of American Standard Canine. I'm sure you have heard of Tom Davis. I'm sure you have heard of Ivan Balabanov. You might have heard of Haz Offman from Shield Canine. These are all trainers who I have looked up to at a certain point in time, whether it's now or in the past. It's difficult when you get into dog training because, especially if you don't go to a dog training school, which is something that I currently am not choosing to do while I'm still trying to build myself a business in the foreseeable future, I'm not going to a dog training school. So you hear me and I'm talking about all these 50 billion trainers, and it's like, well, how do you know what information's right? Well, the information that's right depends on the dog that's in front of you. So, who's the best dog trainer? The trainer who can understand the dog in front of them the most. And for me, I know sometimes with a lot of things I do, it's counterintuitive to watch 50 videos on the same thing. That makes sense. But if you're to read a book on the same thing, the self-help book industry is so widely massive because people read a book about the same damn thing every day. This is kind of like a ramble video. Most of these videos will be. So I do hope that those of you watching can always just try to stick with me. But who's the best dog trainer? Well, for me, I am currently training my dog, Cedar, for IGP. Now, I'm having a couple second thoughts again, and I'm thinking about American Schutzhund. I'm not a fan of the new A-frame changes, but I'm not even in the fucking sport yet, so I feel like I should just give it a try before deciding I'm going to switch again. I don't know. It's confusing. But for me, because I am interested in IGP, I'm focusing my training more on IGP trainers. So I'm focusing more on watching Shield Canine. I have their sport dog course, and their sport dog course has been very helpful to me. I plan on purchasing Ivan Balabanov's book, Advanced Schutzhund, eventually, but I haven't purchased it yet because I'm not advanced in Schutzhund. But I did actually purchase Ivan Balabanov's old DVD series, Obedience Without Conflict, and that actually should be coming in the mail today. It's because I'm going for IGP, I'm following Shield Canine, Haz Offman, and I'm going to be looking into more of the Ivan Balabanov things once I have those DVDs in front of me. I'm not focusing on anyone else for IGP shit. I don't have a single other trainer I'm listening to for IGP shit. Am I reading old books from like the 60s and 40s and 80s? Yes. To advance that skill gap and understand how problem solving works. I love problem solving in dog training. I love using my brain to think about like 50 billion different solutions. I love that shit. So for me, reading how they did it in the past and thinking about how I can advance it for my future is definitely something that brings me joy. And that's in regards to IGP. Now, when it comes to things like your pet dog, I saw a funny comment on Reddit the other day. It said, when you get your puppy, start with Zach George, and then once he gets older, around 6 to 8 months, go to American Standard Canine. Now, is that bad advice? I don't think so. If you want to pick up the Zach George puppy book and then go to American Standard Canine when your dog's 9 months old, fuck it. We ball. You got a pet dog. I worked for him as a video editor for about 6 months. So I was able to have conversations with him. And at the time when I was working for him, I had my pet dog Milo. And Garrett he's a very nice person. He helped me a lot with a lot of the issues I was facing with my first dog. And he was very nice to me when I expressed my interest in like police canine worlds and the sport dog world. And that was my first like mentor. And I'm really grateful for him. I'm appreciative that I was able to have that experience, even just as a video editor, I'll tell you the biggest piece of advice that this man gave me. This dog was about 11 months old when I got him, and so he didn't really have obedience training. That's kind of why I was training him. You should train all dogs you own. We would be in bed with him at night, and he was a mouthy little shithead, and we didn't like it, and we didn't know how to stop it. No one knows how to stop behavior. Funny thing, right? So I was talking to Garrett one day, and I was like, Garrett, how do you think I should like fix this? And he was just like, just correct the dog. You have a prong collar? You have a leash? And I said, yeah. He's like, okay, use it. And he went further into detail, of course, because we were having a conversation, but that changed my entire perspective on things. I was already understanding how these things work, but I wasn't really grasping it. And I'd say when I first started dog training, watch my last video. I talk about, are you watching tutorials or are you training the dog? Frankly, let me tell you, when I was doing American Standard Canine's way of training, I was following tutorials. I was not training the dog. I wasn't watching 50 tutorials because I had a paid course that I was given access to, but I was following tutorials. I was not training the dog. I had no idea what the quadrants meant. Things become a lot clearer once you understand the whole picture. And for me, it's taken until like now for me to grasp more of that picture. And it takes a lot of time. So when you're getting into dog training, and this is a fucking ramble fest, I get it. I'm just talking about my life experiences and things I've learned. But when you're getting into this stuff, it's really important for you to be easy on yourself. This is a learning journey. When I was first in dog training, after I learned like that one prong collar thing, and I was like, oh my god, prong collars are the best tool ever. Everything is so fucking easy with a prong collar. And then I was that guy who would recommend it to anyone on Facebook who was having a troubled time with their dog, and it took me a while to get out of that habit and relearn and reevaluate these things and how I feel about these things, A year, 2 years ago, if you asked me my like philosophy on dog training, I wouldn't have one for you. I don't even think I had a very good relationship with Milo. We'd play and we had good training and I loved my dog, but it's night and day, the difference you see between me and him and me and Cedar. And I love Milo to pieces. I miss him to pieces every single day, but it's true that I failed. And that's okay to admit to yourself too, You don't have to feel shame for failure. It's good to allow yourself growth through failure, And I'll mention as well my fearful, genetically anxious German Shepherd that I fostered for a while. If I was Ivan Balabanov, I probably could have had that dog and made him a decent companion dog for me, albeit he probably would have never been the sport dog I wanted, but I could have had a manageable life with that dog and been happy with it if I had the skill that he has. I don't have the skill that he has. I didn't have access to psychology books. I didn't have access to top-tier trainers or top-tier knowledge. I know everyone can go out of their way to research things, and I did for that dog. That's why I came across Robert Hynes and Mark Dubose, and I started listening to more force-free trainers like Leslie McDevvit when I had Flynn. But I know if I had more of a skill set as opposed to a learning process, I could have helped that dog a lot more, at least in my opinion. I guess all of this just goes to say, like, you're never going to be perfect in this world, you know? Um, like, think about Ivan Balabanov with Tina. Do you think he felt great success every step of the way? I'm sure that stuff is super difficult for him. Think about Dylan Jones. You know, he's been rising recently, and the stuff that he's doing is much different than many other dog trainers. And I'll probably not be the first to admit, I don't like the language he uses sometimes, but that's not for me to judge if he's getting results with dogs, you know? If he is making good, reasonable change for dogs and humans, I respect that. I respect that a lot. So, back to my philosophy on dog training, if you asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have one. But today, my philosophy is really seeing the dog in front of you and putting that relationship as your core practice. That's something that I really had to start doing when it came to me and Flynn. I really had to start focusing on relationship at its core. And even then I failed. And that's okay, because that was a type of dog that I wasn't skilled enough for. You know, I don't feel shame for my learning experiences. I feel regret. I feel like I wish there were more things that I knew that could have helped me then. But we have to be understanding within ourselves. Like, 10 years from now, I'm going to be 31 years old. I'm going to look back on a video like this and be like, you motherfucker, you still don't know shit. You still don't know shit. You ever look in the Dunning-Kruger effect? Like, that's why I stopped giving all my prong collar advice to people, because I was like, damn, I'm wrong. I'm wrong here. Wow. For a while when I was raising Cedar, I was anti-prong collar with him, because in my mind, I was still raising a pet dog. It wasn't until I started going to my club that it really put into perspective for me the mindset shift I needed to have to go from raising a pet companion dog to raising a sport dog. You know, the way I raise my next working puppy is probably going to be completely different than how I raise Cedar. I'm going to start with my little food luring exercise and my drive building exercises like 8 to 12 weeks as opposed to 7 months. I'm really grateful for everyone who I've been able to learn from. I'm really grateful for the people who I have in my life who I have been able to learn from. You know, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Al. And thank you to my wife, Kayla. You know, I love every person who's been part of my learning process physically. And I'm grateful for all the internet dog trainers who I've been able to learn from. I really, specifically appreciate Haas Othman. You know, the Shield Canine system has been very beneficial to me. And, you know, maybe 5 years from now, I'm going to regret saying that. That's okay. Learning process, folks. And let's get back into STS Canine. I gave them a brief mention at the beginning. Last night, I watched their free MVP Mastermind seminar release that they did. And there is so much information in there that I feel like anyone can apply. They specifically focus on the handler's ability before the dog's ability. You know, he made it a clear point to mention, don't get the dog until you feel like you have the skill set to move it, you know, to be dynamic with it. That's because he's the S-flow guy, so that's their method of it. If you want to get your dog and you want to learn as you go, that's also totally fine. I've been doing that since I got my first dog. You know, there's no shame in that. But I do also super respect everything he has to say in that regard. And I also, he mentioned in this seminar, like, he's not a quadrants guy. He doesn't fucking care about the quadrants. And it's always super interesting for me to sit back and recognize all these different opinions that everyone has and how they can all fit into my system. They can all fit into what I know. They can all fit into how I learn. One of the conversations I've been having with my fiance recently is like building her skills up as a handler. Because say today, for example, she has a fetch trial with Cedar, AKC fetch, and Cedar's going to be getting his novice title. Now, when we first were having this conversation and she was showing me what he's been doing, I thought the trial was a month away. I thought it was in February. And so I was like, okay, great. Here are the pieces that we can break this down into and fix this. I didn't know it was this week, literally today. And I stressed her out. I made her very worried. I made her feel like the skill set that she and Cedar both have at this point are not ready for this trial, and that was my mistake, and I've apologized to her for that. But that just goes to show that, like, building our skill and also being reasonable with the goals we set has a lot to do with how nice we are. She's been texting me today, worried and wanting to drop out, and I'm like, hey, you got this. You can do this. It's a fetch trial. I feel like, let's say I wanted to do an IGP trial this weekend. I'd be fucking freaking out. Yeah, that's not fucking possible. So I recognize that I made her fearful of her ability there, and I should have double checked the time before like giving that advice. But that's something I regret. Overall, there are so many different types of dog trainers for so many different types of people. Most people, I would probably recommend McCann dogs, maybe Tom Davis. If you have a Mastiff and you have like an Ego, I'd probably recommend American Standard Canine. No offense, Garrett. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many different philosophies when it comes to dog training, and especially being self-taught, it can become a lot more difficult for you to put yourself in the shoes that you want to see yourself in 10 years. That's really where I'm struggling right now, actually. I have a lot of things that are prior commitments before I can start on my like dog trainer journey. Right now I'm on my dog training journey. Trainer is a whole different word. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about this. I'm gonna actually show y'all real quick on my Kindle app what my favorite dog training books that I've been reading are. So for pet dog owners, the books that I would really recommend to you. Number 1, Nate Schoemer's Dog Training Manual. Oh my god, I wish this was the first book I read when I got into dog training. Oh my god. It's to the point, it's realistic, it's honest, it tells you everything you need to know. Seriously, he goes over the quadrants, he goes over tools, he tells you every definition of every word you need to know. I genuinely recommend this book to anyone who's super interested in dog training and wants to get into it now. Another book I recommend, and this is for people who maybe don't care about all the technical stuff, but they just want a good pet dog. No Nonsense Dog Training, Has Othman. Has is a champion high in IGP with his dog Gage, and I believe is also Chico. So he does IGP for his own self, but his pet training business is also very efficient, very well run, and this book is very nice. The third book I'd recommend is Ecollar Training, Everything You Need to Know About Ecollar Training by Larry Crone. I haven't finished this book. I haven't fully utilized this book, but from what I've read in it, I very much think it would help other people as well. When it comes to fundamentals in dog sport, so say you want to do IGP, PSA, dock diving even. So for dock diving and IGP, if you want a book that would work for both those two, Canine Cross Training by Sasha Foster. I haven't read this book yet, but I'm excited to. Now, if you're going for IGP or PSA or any of those bite sports, Controlled Aggression. I've been reading Controlled Aggression here and there. I need to understand a lot more about the mechanics when it comes to like bite work and aggression in dogs and how they feel about this stuff. I need to understand more of that for myself. I don't yet. Another book that you could read is Helmut Razor's The Protection Dog. I've heard that people only recommend you read like the first bit where he explains the drives and how it overall creates a productive dog, because once you get into the dog training philosophy, well, now you're in the choke and rope days of the 1960s, and unless you want a dog that won't run downfield, you probably should stick away from that. Carrying on from there, Canine Schutzen Training. This is a book from like Dogwise, I think. I don't know, something like that. They focus on Schutzen training through a positive, force-free approach. I haven't fully read it yet. I am going to read it while I'm also reading other IGP books or following IGP trainers and try to fill that skill gap to see like, okay, well, I can get a little bit more effective energy by using this little bit compulsive method in addition to using this super positive method from this book and elevating myself and the dog. Now, granted, it's a lot more nuanced than that. It takes a lot of time to figure out these things. This is why you got to sit back and plan your training sessions. Guys, this video is about fucking everything. Everything is all together in this world. You got to figure it out individually before you can put it all together. Watch the SCS Canine stuff. He talks about it. Something I would definitely recommend for most people, Controlled Unleashed can seriously help you. When I had Flynn, the methods that I was learning in Controlled Unleashed very much helped me with him. And I'll just put it at that. Now, if you want to learn about dog training history and also maybe do things a little bit effectively, check out Dobson's 14-Day Dog Training. This is a very old school book, but I feel like some of the methods can still hold true to this day. Now, these next books aren't dog training books, but they are rather like psychology books. And if you've been in dog training for a while, you probably understand that psychology and dog training pretty much go hand in hand. So, one of the books that I have is Verbal Behavior by B.F. Skinner. I haven't looked into this one yet. I just have it downloaded. And the next book that I have, God, where is it? The next book I have is The Handbook of Applied Behavior and Training. So I have the 1, 2, 3 book series. It's on Kindle and it's very expensive. I got a link if you want it for free. Don't tell the YouTube gods I said that. So I got it and I've been reading it on Kindle and I have a lot of pages bookmarked that are specifically about like dog aggression, dog fear, dog genetics, and I'm really excited to sit back and actually read those. I have so many books in my Kindle library that I feel like it'll take me a lifetime to actually sit down and read all of them. So for me, going through and making the chapters and marking what I want to read is definitely becoming very helpful for me at this point in time. Back to the main overarching point in this video. There is no best dog trainer. Look at the dog in front of you. Make a damn decision. Put 2 and 2 together before you go outside. Sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes you got to make decisions on the fly when you're outside with the dog. That's okay. It's a learning process. Don't be afraid of the learning process, or else you're never going to fucking learn. All right. See you guys next time. Subscribe if you like this stuff.